People trained us to ignore 364 out of 365 days a year. I make the same decision.
I had to learn certain things before I really understood the decision-making process.
That's the key to getting to the finish line as fast as you possibly can. Welcome back, everybody, to Dream Life Podcast. I'm your host, Steve Buck, and with me is my co-host,
Gabie.
Well, Gabie, good to have you back. Good to have our audience back. As usual, what we like to do is take a couple minutes just to rehash what we discussed in the previous podcast. Right. In our previous podcast, somebody had asked the question of me giving them an example of who had it really, really hard achieving the American dream. And I outlined in that podcast, along with some help of Kirk Cameron and his documentary, the pilgrims that came here, the 47 who ended up out of 102.
Right.
Those pilgrims had it harder and more difficult than anybody that I've ever seen or heard living the American dream. And if you haven't seen it,
check it out.
Check it out. Go back and see, because when we talk about hard and when we say hard, I don't mean the hard that you think is hard, what I think is hard, or what Gabie thinks is hard. When I say hard, I'm talking about pilgrim hard. Go see how hard the pilgrims had it, and you will see how easy it is to live the American dream.
Right.
Because compared to that, it's a walk in the park. All right, so, Gabie, let's get on to our next episode. This episode, it's going to be a little bit shorter, but it's one of the most important topics that we're going to discuss, which plays into our mission of helping young African-American men gain control of their life and get headed in the right direction so that they can live the American dream. The name of this episode is Decisions, Decisions, Decisions. And we've all seen those posters, right? Decisions, decisions, decisions. Decisions are very important, and they're a direct derivative of choices.
Right.
And so after I finish opening this episode, that's what we're going to hit. We're going to talk about decisions, 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 because that is the essence of what makes up our life. You can contact us, email us questions. How to contact us will also be posted. So if you want to help us out, check out that process that we have on our website, and we will get that going. Life is chock full of choices. We cannot live life without choices and decisions every single solitary day.
Right. Even if you say you don't want to, you're going to be forced into it.
That's a good point. That's a great point. I'm glad you said that. Is that even you don't have to want to make decisions or choices, but we have. That's the essence of life, is having choices and making decisions. And because of the fact that we live in a relatively free country, which will be very free very soon, but we do live in a relatively free country. And I just wanted to go through one of my typical days or one of your typical days, okay, so that we can just bring it home,
right,
so to speak. And what are some typical decisions in the life of successful people, right? So I want to start on the first decision that I make when I wake up in the morning. And it's programmed. I have a choice. I would say 364 out of 365 days a year, I make the same decision. That's the first one I make. What's the first decision that you make?
I'm going to get up and make something happen. I don't know what it is, but it's going to be something that's going to be helpful. Because if it's not, then what's the purpose?
That's it. Well, and we had that one episode that we talked about the three different types of people.
Right.
And let's just refresh everybody's memory. Gabie, what are the three types of people in the world?
The people who do something, the people that watch something, and the people that don't do or know nothing.
Okay, I'm going to enhance. I'm going to enhance your
I know
paraphrase.
I mixed it up.
I'm going to enhance your paraphrase because you only got a 75 on it. Number one, there are those who make things happen.
That's right.
That's the type 1 person, those who make things happen. The second type of person is those who watch things happen.
Yes.
And the third type of person are those who don't know what happened.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Straight loss.
And we don't even have to talk about that type of people because by now, the people who don't know what happened, they don't even know this podcast exists.
They're right.
All right. And hopefully most of the people who are watching our podcast today are type 1 people. So I want to go through just my typical day, just like you. Okay. The first thing that comes to mind is, okay, I love that commercial where the Dunkin' Donuts guy, as soon as he rolls out of bed, it's time to make the donuts, and he could.
Right.
Okay, but that commercial is a fantastic commercial, and a lot of people don't even pick up on how great that commercial is. Okay, because the Dunkin' Donut people, when they wake up in the morning, the first thing that comes to mind is what?
Time to make the donuts.
It's time to make the donuts. Okay. That's it. They don't even think about anything else. Okay. So if you're a Dunkin' Donuts worker,
Right.
the first thing that you think about in the morning is it's time to make the donuts. When I wake up in the morning, the first decision I have to make, okay, is whether I'm going to take a shower or not. 364 days a year out of 365, I'm going directly to the shower. Okay. What's the one thing on that one day out of 365 days that I decided not to take a shower? Why did I decide not to take a shower?
You probably had to leave the house earlier. It didn't have time to take the shower.
You got it. You got it. I was supposed to be out of the house, out of the shower, out of the house by the time I would have been stepping into the shower. So,
Right.
So at that point in time, a shower is not an option.
Right.
Okay. But we're going to go back and we're going to talk about the 365 days a year. So the typical standard and usual, I get out of bed. I'm a type 1 person. And that's the first decision I have to get. Today, am I going to be a type 1 or type 2 person? I don't fall into the category of 3 ever.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Most of the time, I'm a type 1 person. 365 days a year, I'm a type 1 person.
Right.
364 days a year, I'm a type 1 person. So I automatically make the decision that I'm going to address my personal hygiene. So the first thing I do is I go over, I grab a towel, I hang it on the hook, and I get in the shower and I take my shower. After my shower, dry myself off. As a man, we have this scrub that comes every day.
Right.
And if you like to be clean shaven,
Yes.
the second thing that you're going to do is you're going to shave. My father used to say, you know, it's typical to shit, shower, and shave.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Exactly.
And the first part I left out on purpose. But those are typically the first 3 decisions. Am I going to shit? Am I going to shower? And am I going to shave?
Right.
And normally the answer to that is yes. All right. So we go ahead, we shit, we shower, we shave, and we get dressed. Then before I leave the house, I have to make the decision, am I going to demonstrate some attention to my wife before I leave the house? Am I going to acknowledge that she exists and that I love her and that I hope that she has a good day? And most of the time, I like to acknowledge my wife, let her know that I love her, let her know that I want her to have as good of a day as I'm going to have.
Right.
Now we make a decision to go. I get in the elevator. I go down to my truck. I get in my truck. And when I get in the truck, I have to make another decision. Number 1, I got to decide what radio station I'm going to listen to. Right. And number 2, I got to decide how hot or cold that I want to make the environment inside the truck. So let's just stop and pause there for just a minute. Let's just say I roll out of bed at 6 o'clock. By 6:25, look at how many choices.
Right.
Look how many choices and how many decisions I had from 6 o'clock to 6:25.
Before you even leave out the house.
Before I even leave the house, I had choices and I had decisions.
Right.
Within that, I could have made choices that were good and bad, and I could have made decisions that were good and bad. But because of practicing making the correct choice and the correct decision, okay,
Good point.
from 6 o'clock to 6:25, it's like clockwork. From 6 o'clock to 6:25 every day, it normally goes perfect. Once I get my truck and I leave the parking lot, at that point in time, now things could possibly start to get dicey. Okay? So I get my truck. As soon as I pull out of my driveway, there's a sign that says speed limit. 45.
Should I follow it or should I not?
Choice, decision. And now that I'm getting older if the speed limit sign said 45, I'd normally do 58. Now that I'm getting older, if the speed limit sign says 45,
Right.
I choose to go about 50, 52 miles because I'm of the opinion that the officer who gets me on radar going 52 in a 45,
Right.
he's got a choice to make.
Right.
And he's got a decision to make. He sees that I'm going above the posted speed limit.
Right.
Okay. But is my failure to obey the law so egregious?
Right. That he's going to divert from his real focus of crime to bother you.
Is he going to come and is he going to mess with me over 6 or 7 miles an hour? And I submit to you that 99.999% of the time, if it's not a rookie, it won't even hit his internal radar.
Yeah, right.
Although his external radar says that I was not obeying the law, his internal says that decision for Steve Buck to go past me at 52 miles an hour, although the sign clearly states that the limit is 45, I'm going to decide again, because I decided the last 262 times Steve Buck did this in that white Chevy truck, I decided to give him the grace. Okay. I had a choice as a police officer. I had a choice. I could pull him over and I could harass him over 7 miles an hour, or I could just let it go because it's really within my purview to kind of ignore that infraction. Okay. So let's talk about that for just a second. Okay. Technically, down to the letter of the law, I clearly have completely disregarded the law.
You're right.
Okay. The law tells me, it does not suggest to me, the law tells me that 45 is the ultimate upper limit. It's not, you can go slower.
Yeah, right.
But 45 is the ultimate upper limit that's acceptable or should be acceptable to everybody driving down that road.
Right.
Yet 75% of the people driving down that road are slightly or somewhat above that ultimate
It's
law.
literally a consensus of, I was told that actually starting off as a driver, hey, it's okay to go about 5 miles or so over the limit. They won't stop you.
Perfect. Okay. And that makes my point. Here's my point. I was told the same thing. What did that do? What signal, what training did that send to myself and yourself as a young driver? Okay. People trained us to ignore the law. People trained us to make an incorrect,
decision,
unsubmissive decision. Okay.
And a lot of us do it.
Well, and we do. But as we're talking about being successful and making the right choices and the right decisions, we have to talk about the technicality of choices and decisions.
Right.
Just like with God, when we have a speeding infraction with God, he doesn't cut us off and throw us into the fire of hell and give us fire and brimstone. Okay. There's that area of grace. The limits to that grace, I call that the danger zone. If I drive down that road at 45 miles an hour, I do not have to rely upon grace one iota. If that officer pulls me over and says, Mr. Buck, you were driving 45 miles an hour in a 45 mile an hour zone, I could say, clearly, I have obeyed the law down to the very letter of it. So why have you detained me from going about making my other decisions and choices that I have to make today? And he simply has to say, have a good day.
Yeah, right.
Okay. So in our choices and our decisions, if we put ourselves in that realm of grace, we can travel there, but we have to understand that there's certain dangers that come along, that come hand in hand.
Right.
We have to accept that risk. So if our choices and our decisions are not technically 100% spot on, we enter into that zone where we're taking risk. We have to understand that things may not technically go as well as they should. The reason I bring this up is the fact that when it comes to choices and it comes to decisions, even times where we are 100% technically within the letter of the law, you would think that there wouldn't be any risk, but there is. Okay, because of the fact that it's people who are enforcing or are supposed to enforce the law. But when you purposely go into that risk zone, that grace zone, you may be subject to some bumps in the road. And if something happens in life, I may not be driving down the road, but if I went into that risk zone and something happened and I got beat down for it, I call that getting a speeding ticket. I made a choice. I made a decision. I got caught. I didn't ask for permission, but I begged for forgiveness, and I typically get my forgiveness and move on. So when we talk about choices and decisions, every single solitary choice and decision that we make throughout the day comes back to what we were teaching in one of the earlier episodes, where we were talking about the fact that you're training yourself to either make the right or the wrong decisions.
Right.
And so what I want to do, I want to take just a short video podcast, put together a podcast that basically allows people just to take a minute, really digest the process of having choices to make and the decisions, and looking at the outcome of what the decisions are.
It's a good point you make that, because in my world, in the environment I grew up in, of course, where it was a lot of negative tone and questioning why you can't, and this, all of that stuff. So I had to learn certain things before I really understood the decision-making process, okay? And that was being accountable for the actions and knowing, the pros and the cons of what you do, So when you practice knowing these pros and cons, and you look at what happens after you make a decision, you become a better decision maker. Once you see that this don't work, I'm gonna try this. Let me go this way instead of in dealing with so many different type of personalities and people in the world. You have to be real flexible with these decisions and how you make them and how they will affect another person.
Well, exactly. That ties into what we were talking about before, is that we don't want to be insane. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting a different result. Should we expect a different result? If we continue to do the same thing, we get the same result, and it's a bad result, okay, we should not expect a different result. So as we kind of hone in on discussion about choices and decisions, the reason I wanted to hit it early on in our presentations is because of the fact that the more you pay attention to what your choices are, the better that you practice making the correct decision. That's the key to getting to the finish line as fast as you possibly can. And patience, you have to have the patience of the Puritans. They had to regroup for 13 years in Holland before they made the trek from Holland to the United States, right? And as that documentary Monumental points out, is that the Puritans, they didn't come directly from England. They made a pit stop in Holland because, at least in Holland, they had some semblance of freedom to worship God and serve God in the way that they saw fit. But they wanted to create an entire land where a vast land was free. And what were they willing to do? They wanted to do that, and then they wanted to bring that freedom back from the new land, which became America. What happened after freedom and liberty hit the shores of America?
It opened up.
It opened up across the entire world, right? The world today, to whatever extent there's freedom and liberty in any country, it is a direct collateral benefit from what happened in the United States of America.
I agree.
Okay? And so all of these tyrants across the entire globe could not get away with being tyrants because people simply said, well, I don't have to live under your tyranny. I'm going to go to America. And so what was happening over those years? People were bailing out all of these countries. So what happened? The tyrants had to give the people freedom and liberty that they otherwise never would have experienced had it not been for those 47 Puritans who ended up surviving in Plymouth that fateful winter.
It would still be a regime.
That's right. They've done their best to try to control us and strip off our freedoms, which they have, but that'll be coming to an end here very soon, and true freedom shall reign again.
But I just wanted to touch too on just still on the decision-making process and all of that. A lot of people don't realize, I mean, just like a sport, music, anything, decision-making process is the same thing. Like you said, if you practice it and you notice certain things, you become a faster decision-maker, which means you can solve issues faster than an average person.
A faster and a better
Yes.
decision maker, right?
'Cause that's what I am to some people. Like a gift that I feel that I have. Like I have an issue with small things, tedious, small, minute. It just like a pin sticking me in my head. Like, get out of here. But big things, I sit back like it's little, and I'm like, oh, that's simple. How you don't see the answers right there? You know what I'm saying? I see it so clearly, but I'm not. Or I haven't been that person that was in that quote unquote power position to where I can distribute that out to people who are bad decision makers. They don't listen.
That's a great example. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I'm going to bring Stephen Lacey into the conversation for a second. Okay. Because of practicing choices and decisions, right. Stephen will tell you that it takes me an extraordinary amount of time to making a decision. Mm-hmm. It typically takes maybe 1,000th of a nanosecond for me to make a decision, but that's it. It's in the right direction. Okay, right. Why? Because intuitively, when you have a choice, you make a decision, and when the decision is black and white, you just make the decision. It's so easy. You could just make it. Right. Okay. Right. And if I'm making a decision and I have a 75% chance of getting it right, so I'll make the decision just like that. I don't care about that 25% risk because I know that I have a 75% chance of being right out of the gate because of intuition and practice. Right. Okay. That's it. Yeah. Right. Lesson learned. Even if you're wrong, right. You've got another choice and decision under your belt, and you're going to know what the right choice and decision is. And that's where I want our audience to get to is to choice, make the right decision. Practice choice, choose this. Okay. Black and white, choose the clear path. You know it's right. Just do it. Right. Okay. Just do it. Chop. Right decision. And nonstop. Just make the right decision. I can make a decision so fast I scare most people.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, I've had that effect on people too. They how you no, and then it'd be the right answer to what they say no against.
Right, it's the right answer. Why? Because we've learned to trust our gut. We've learned from our bad decisions because we clearly knew that when we made that decision, we knew it could end badly. Right, and when it did, I mean. Was I surprised every bad decision and choice that I made? Was I surprised it ended badly? Absolutely not. I expected it to end badly, and it did. Okay.
Especially if you didn't know, and it was just a rod you was throwing out there. Let me see what I can catch.
Well, we've all done that, right? Yeah. And we still all do that. Yeah. But no, I wanted to take a minute. Choices will happen all day, every day, from now until we part ways with this earth. Right. But it's the decisions and how good that we become at making the correct decision every single time. You don't have to make them quickly, but make the right decision, know what the right choice is, and just do it. And I submit to you and our audience that better and faster you master that art of making good decisions, the quicker things will go well for you. And that's what we're all about, is helping. I
learned that personally. Well, I made a lot of bad decisions as a kid. I was really bad.
We all did, right? We all did. But it's our ability to see the difference between the right and the wrong decision, practice making the right decision, and then at least at that point in time, you have a fighting chance. So after that, again, there's 3 types of people in the world. What are they?
The people that make things happen, the people that watch things happen, and the people that don't know what happened.
And with that, folks, we're going to end our podcast. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you again next week. Thanks for tuning in.